Yes, thank you very much, Sean. Appreciate that. And thank you for everything you're doing there. Um, for those of you who joined for the first time, welcome. Really appreciate that you've taken the time out of your early mornings to listen to these toolbox talks. And for our regular guys that tune in, thank you again for coming back to these toolbox talks brought to you by FEM and IOPSA. Please don't forget, SAOSH has accredited these toolbox talks with 1 CPD point. So if you're not too sure how to do that, just drop us a mail and we can explain to you how to get your CPD points. But also, if you log on to the SAOSH website, if you have captured them before, you capture them the same way as most of your other CPD points as well. Just choose or select the toolbox talks from FEM as the point allocation section. So without taking too much time, let's get straight into our topic this morning, which is housekeeping. Yes, we did miss last week's toolbox talk, and as it is the first of the month, we should have had our how-to section, but we are going to move that over to next week, Tuesday, how to do audits on safety files or safety systems, and we'll give you a nice little audit tool or a template there for you guys as well. But because of the high demand or so many questions and queries coming in about housekeeping, we decided to keep this topic and then just take one out from next week and replace it with our how-to section. So we hope to see you next week as well for that same topic. Now, housekeeping principles can help us to promote good safety habits. And as we mentioned, with a lot of our toolbox talk, although you might not be in the industry of construction or you might not fall under the legislation of construction, we also want to learn from the principles from this legislation. So let's take a look at the construction regulations and what we can learn within our industries on how to apply good techniques or good principles of housekeeping. Starting with Section 27A of the construction regulations, telling us that the proper storage of materials and equipment must be continuously implemented on a site. And this is to ensure suitable housekeeping. Now, if we think of proper storage of materials and equipment, this means that as housekeeping goes, everything has a place and everything should be in its place. So materials, tools, equipment, especially chemicals, want to be placed in an area where it has been designated, it is safe, and also kept out of reach of those who might be in danger of coming into contact with this risk. So the proper storage of materials and equipment may mean that you need to have a storage unit. Perhaps it is just storage on a particular site. And here maybe we can think of water. A lot of times we are on site and what we want to do is store water, maybe out of a geyser, or perhaps we are storing the items that are going to contain the water. Well, where are these items being kept? Obviously, we want to keep them free of the aisles or any walking areas. When we store them, how we stack them on top of one another so that they're not too high and they do not fall over. All of this would be part of housekeeping. Another very important one, and this is something that came up in a lot of the emails from you as the plumbers, is the removal of scrap or waste or any debris from your sites. A lot of you are speaking about private homes. What do you do with some of that scrap? Does it belong to the owner of the home? Does it belong to the plumber? What is done with it? Well, this is just to answer your question for those of you who did ask it via email. If there is any scrap, waste, or debris that is left on site, why not speak to either the owner or the contractor that is on site that you are working for, your client, and discuss with them beforehand the removal of any waste and scrap. Remembering that if it is hazardous biological waste, so maybe you've cleaned out a sewer and this needs to be taken off of site. This needs to be discarded at a proper waste site, ensuring that it's not going to be harmful to any other person or the environment. Thus, the onus would be on yourself to ensure you have the correct means of transporting this hazardous chemical or hazardous substance to the appropriate site. But when it comes to things like plastic wrapping, cardboard boxes, perhaps on site, there is already a place for you to discard of this safely. Again, don't just assume that you can use the bins that are there for rubbish as your personal bins. Rather have it in writing with a private owner of a home or even the client or contractor on site. Then there is no recourse later on if anything has to go wrong with the removal of the scrap or waste. Perhaps it has to cost the person something to remove that scrap. You'd rather want to take the initiative beforehand and sort out any of those issues. But removing scrap, waste, or debris from a site, when is this done? Well, it says at appropriate intervals. In other words, interval means at specific times, not just once off and not just at the end of a project. At intervals means it's a continuous implementation. So when we do open up a geyser, a hydroboil, taps, or anything else that we are using to put in, we want to make sure that that packaging is stored or binned as soon as possible. Having this lay around, exposes us to a whole lot of other risks and hazards that can come up, as we'll see later as well. Then also ensuring that the material that you are needing is not placed in the pathway or the workway so as to obstruct the means of access or egress from the workplace. Now, the reason why this is so important is if an emergency should arise, whether it be a medical emergency, somebody being injured, a fire, or even an evacuation, these items that are placed in the means of access to the site or exiting the site will obstruct your free flow of traffic, either yourself, medical personnel trying to assist you, or even other contractors around you, even your client possibly, and you'd never want that to affect the working environment around you. So that's why housekeeping is such an integral part of health and safety on all of our sites. Well, let us take a look at a few more principles. Ensuring that any site adjacent to a public way is suitably fenced off. Now, this might not be your responsibility, but remembering when working on any private residence or any client's residence, public might also refer to the people that are in the house or at the premises that you are working. Perhaps they are employees, perhaps they are caretakers of the house, children of the house, or even the owner of the house. They become essentially public as well in the eyes of the legislation. So when we want to discard or put things aside, especially when it comes to waste or debris, we do not want it to affect these people. We want to ensure that it either is fenced off or barricaded off, or it is situated in a position that it is not easily accessible for them, public people, to get in contact with it, because then you are exposing these ones to the hazard that is available on site. Lastly, if it is needed that you are working above a passageway or an entrance, such as working on a rooftop or maybe working on a bridge that goes or connects two buildings together. We just want to ensure a catch platform or a net is erected above this entrance or underneath that bridge. And the reason for this is obvious. Should something fall, we do not want it contacting a lower level or somebody that might be walking, especially if it is designated as a walking area. Now, this might not affect you at all. The previous four principles might affect you the most, but keep it in mind that should it be designated as an area for access or exiting a site, we want to ensure it is as clean as possible, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Again, this is the principles or the law governing construction sites. But can we learn from these principles to tidy up as much as possible to keep the area clean? Well, let us take a look at why this is so important, especially in the workplace. Housekeeping is not only an important issue for safety purposes, but it also reflects workmanship on a project. And I'm sure you would agree that if you had to take your vehicle in to have it mechanically repaired or even cleaned, when you receive your car back and it's not as clean as you would hope, or perhaps it's not clean at all, how does that reflect the workmanship of the actual dealership that you are dealing with? Well, doesn't it reflect poorly on them? They might have done a good job mechanically, but because your car is dirty, perhaps oily fingerprints on the bonnet, perhaps they've damaged some of the lining on the interior of your car with oil or grease that they were working with. Fighting with them, stating that the car is now dirty and they would have to pay for it being cleaned, they may just say to you, well, you brought it in for a service, not a car wash. But really, isn't the responsibility on the person fixing that car, maintaining that car, that you've given it to them under their supervision? Would you not expect them to keep it clean? And if they had soiled your car, to make sure that it is clean before giving it back to you? Well, any reasonable person would expect that. So the same would hold true for us on a site. If we get to a site, we should leave it either as clean as we found it, or if not possible, cleaner than we found it. Because this not only gives us good safety habits, but once again reflects quality workmanship that all of our clients should expect from us. Then each individual on a private site, or even a contractor on a construction site, is responsible for the removal of debris sorry, and keeping their area free of debris and waste, and making sure their work area is clean all the time. So again, make sure you understand what is the procedure for removal of waste. And as a very good idea, and this is just something that we have found in the safety industry, safe working procedures are extremely important in this instance. If we have beforehand found out what we need to do and when we need to remove rubbish from a site or from a personal residence, why not put this into a safe working procedure? Outline the steps that need to be taken, put in how often this must be done, put in the person that is designated as the supervisor of this removal or housekeeping site, appoint that person, train that person, and on each site there going forward, you now have a good safe working procedure that can just be tweaked or changed for every site moving on. This will help each person going into a job know and understand what is required of them. Then individually, as not just as a company, but each employee individually, please remember to look after your own working area. Clean as you go. Remember, this is a continuous thing. Housekeeping in a workplace, even at home, on our own persons, in our vehicles, is extremely important. Do not leave hazards that could be placing ourselves or others at risk. Now, when we get to sites of construction sites, we must remember that poor housekeeping could result in fire, and the likelihood of a fire on site will be increased if we continually leave rubbish laying around. You are also more likely to experience a slip or a trip accident with more rubbish laying around, especially if your work area is constantly untidy. So please keep all access routes, should you need to enter that area or exit that area, especially if it is a fire escape route, clear of all debris or materials at all times. Don't feel you're only going to be there for a few minutes, so you can block that area just for a few minutes. An incident or an accident can happen at a time that we least expect it. And should it happen to us, while that area has been blocked for a few minutes, there is a potential for that to escalate and continue to be blocked after something has happened to us. And then again, do not leave any flammable items on site. Remember, to create a fire, we only need oxygen, heat, and a fuel source, such as paper or anything that can be easily ignited. These three things are found on site all the time. What we want to ensure is that they do not create a fire because of poor housekeeping or because of an untidy workplace. So these are just a few of the things that we wanted to mention to you. And then also moving on to your car, your vehicles, not even just being on site or in your workplace, we also want to remember that our vehicle actually becomes company property, and it also falls under the same policy as a workplace. Now, vehicles are often taken to sites and they are under view or in the eye of our clients. What do they see when you get out your vehicle? Do they see a clean vehicle, one that is not cluttered or full of rubbish? These are also seen on public roads and in public places. Oftentimes, we have our names branded on the side or the back. Are we representing ourselves, not just our company, as clean individuals, as ones who take housekeeping seriously? Remember, not just the view of the public, but again on the health and safety side, if there is a lot of junk inside the cab of our vehicle, that is the front of the vehicle, especially near the driver area side, the risk of anything getting stuck under our pedals or even under our feet is increased. And this will create a hazardous environment, like not being able to press on your brakes, not being able to use the clutch properly, or not being able to use that area freely. This, as you can see, creates a hazardous environment that could potentially lead to road accidents. Now, who is responsible for housekeeping? Well, that's quite an easy answer, and you should know it by now. Everyone is responsible for housekeeping. And what are the benefits? If you didn't know, well, these are some of them. It eliminates accidents and fire hazards. If you don't believe me, go onto a site that is untidy and take a look at their statistics of the incidents and accidents, especially the minor or first aid ones. Then go to a site that is clean and organized, and you will see a dramatic drop in those incident ratings. It also helps to maintain a safe and healthy working environment, especially in plumbing, working with any biologicals. If it's not clean, working inside a kitchen, if it's not clean, this can promote an unhealthy workplace that could lead to illness. It saves time, it saves money, it saves materials, it saves space as well as effort. And perhaps you've experienced this before. Cleaning on site and making sure you've got a regular routine will save you in the long run. It also improves productivity and quality. I don't know if any of you ever work at home with any tools or any items inside a work cupboard. You will notice how much better it is if it is clean and organized when you need to get something done. There is nothing more frustrating than walking up to a toolbox and not finding the tool that you want as soon as possible. Whereas if it's in the correct place, it's easy to find, it's easy to use. You'll find it flows a lot more. You do not get frustrated, which means there are less accidents on site from your side as well. It boosts morale of your employees because when they are on site, they feel a lot more comfortable when ensuring their site is clean and working on a clean site. And again, in the eye of your clients or any personnel, it reflects a well-run organization. So why not look at the 5 benefits or the 5 areas that we can use to maintain housekeeping? Make sure you sort, set it in order, shine it, standardize it, and systemize it. Thank you very much for joining our Toolbox Talk this morning. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a throat cough this morning. But for those of you who haven't already signed up for the October 8th and 9th training in Gauteng, please do so as soon as possible. For those of you down in Western Cape, we will see you in November, which is the Knysna area. If you need any help or assistance, please reach out to us at chris@ohss.co.za, safety@iopsa.org, or info@ohss.co.za. And then we look forward to seeing you next week. As we mentioned, we will do the how-to section on auditing safety next week, Tuesday. Thank you very much, and we'll hand it over back to you, Sean.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Chris. I'm not going to hand it back so that you can go ahead and cough your throat clear. Guys, I am just going to say thank you very much from our side. Thanks for joining us. Please remember to join us again same time next week for the How to Audit Safety. I'm going to go ahead and end the session off now, guys. A survey will open up in your web browser. Please do take the 30 seconds to go ahead and answer that for us. Other than that, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you guys next week.